For people that don't know, I've been a business coach for a while now, and I've been in coaching professionally for about 13 years. It's been a game changer in my life. And the guest that I have on this episode, Ryan McKee, is literally one of the most successful realtors in California. The guy does insane numbers. He has for a long time, but he also used to be a famous musician on the road, work tours, playing with some of the most famous punk and rock bands that you've ever heard of. You might even recognize his name. But what's cool about his story is that this guy hit rock bottom just like me. And from that place, he got mentors in his life, listened to what they said, and surrendered to the winning side. And has been able to build not only an insane business and a ton of wealth. He could walk away from his job today, but his family's in balance. His relationship with God is his priority. He has a ton of purpose in his community. And this guy is just an amazing friend of mine. I'm so grateful that we got to have this podcast. I think that this is probably one of the best ones I've ever done. So if you're someone that wants to know, where do you start and the heart behind where to start, and then just be inspired of how much of a difference you can make in your own life in 5 to 10 years, this is an episode you don't want to miss. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and download. That's going to help me get this podcast out there to more people, and it's going to help me continue to get incredible guests like Ryan McKee. Ryan McKee, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, man. We're finally doing a podcast. I appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's long overdue, so I'm glad we can make it happen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so the people that listen to my podcast, 25 to 45, middle to upper middle class people. There's definitely younger people and older, but that's kind of the most of them, and a lot of them are homeowners or people that are trying to figure out how to make investments, and we talk about kind of anything. But the reason why I wanted to have you on is because you have an incredible story. I'm still getting to know you, but what I know about you, we have a lot in common, and now we're both coaches for the core, so we believe in a lot of the same things, and we're in alignment on a lot of levels. So I thought that it would be cool to hear your story and how you got into real estate as, one of the top guys down in SoCal, and how you balance that with family and being a coach and do the things you do with a smile on your face. So that's kind of the goal here today, bro. So why don't we start with that? Tell me a little bit about your story and like how you ended up in real estate, because I know you were like a punk rock band or you a rock band at some point, and you've done a lot of things in your life. How'd you get into real estate?
Yeah, so it's funny, every time I meet a new client and I'm not wearing long sleeves, they're like, "Hey, what's all this about?" And I'm like, "I swear I have not done prison time. I'm I'm a product of Southern California punk rock and skate scene." And so, that's really a part of my story, Chris, is school wasn't really my thing. I wish I could go back and redo it, but I can't. But I was 20 years old, 21 years old, and college wasn't working for me. And I was trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be. And at that time, I really liked hanging out with my buddies and listening to music and surfing and partying and all the things at that time. And it led into me starting. I actually never even picked up a guitar until I was probably about 20 years old. By the time I was 23, I had already been through about 3 bands and landed with a band out of Orange County, Los Angeles area. And we ended up doing about a 10-year run, made it pretty far. We played, just about every single state and city through the Warped Tour. We got signed to a label out of Japan and one out of San Diego. And, over the course of 10 years, put out about, 5 different albums, played with just about every band that you've ever heard on the radio, and had a lot of stories and all of that. So it was cool. The big thing I learned through my time, doing that was really about marketing. So it's crazy, when you are in a band, you don't think about it this way, but you're running a small business. And literally for us to survive, we had to play shows, make money, sell merchandise, and figure out logistics. We had management, but we were playing shows, taking that money, reinvesting it into the band. So we were running a small business in essence. So I learned about contracts, I learned about marketing and all of that. The unfortunate part of that industry is it doesn't pay very well. So by the time I was 30 years old, I had a 2-year-old child and I was in a very new marriage. And your shelf life in rock and roll or punk rock is about 30 years old, and then you're considered aged out. And so I was, I had to figure it out. So as you'll learn with me, Chris, a lot of the decisions I make, you're like, what in the world is that guy doing? So in 2008, I had the great idea that I was going to go into real estate. So perfect timing, right? Perfect timing. Can't think of a better year to start in real estate. So yeah, great year, great year. So luckily there's a little bit more to it than that. I didn't make that much of an uninformed decision, but I'm actually third generation real estate. So my dad had always been smart and said, Ryan, stay out of real estate, get a real job, right? So and in the good defiant nature of who I am, I said, okay. And then finally I went and just got my license in 2007. And then in 2008, I approached him and said, hey, I'm going into real estate. So it's either going to be with you or I'll go to another company. And then he took me on. So luckily at that time, my dad's actually one of the biggest, they call it REO, but bank owned REO, repossessed homes. My dad's been doing that at a high level for over 30 years. So I was fortunate to walk in and help him on some of his larger assets and some of his bigger banks. So that was kind of my start in real estate. I started cutting my teeth with some bank owned properties and went from there.
So were you always, did you all, because you and were in a coaching world called the core, and we believe in, really taking care of the money that we make and doing the right thing with it.
Yes.
Is that something that you were also taught and did well all those years in the punk band? Because I know I know your life today, and you're about as good of a guy as anyone could meet, and you do, you steward your money well, and I just know for a lot of people right now, it's a massive challenge. There's a lot of emotions around it. They don't know what to do. So when did that start for you? Because like for me, that's why I came to the core. I didn't come to the core because I wanted to become a millionaire. I came to the core because money was scary. And I was making decent money. I did not know what to do with it, so I just spent it. And I was like, man, if I get some guys looking over my shoulder, at least I'll do the right thing with this money. And obviously it became so much more for me. So tell me a little bit about your beliefs around money early on.
Yeah, really, it was the same. I was never taught anything about money. And even leading into my first couple years in real estate, I made 100 grand my first year in real estate, and I was coming from making $30,000 a year as a civil engineer land surveyor. When I got out of music, that was my real job. So I thought I was like killing it, making 30 grand a year. That's the most money I'd ever made. So you can only imagine going from 30,000 to 100,000. But if you saw what happened during those times in 2008, they opened up the floodgates, but then they also closed the floodgates off really quick with foreclosure moratoriums. And so I went from 100 grand, making 100 grand, to, I had probably about 30,000 in the bank, the most I'd ever saved. And then everything went away, and I was literally just dipping into savings, dipping into savings. My wife and I went through about $30,000 in about 6 months. We had just bought our first house. We were spending money like it wasn't going away. So I went from 30,000 down to zero. Literally, it was the end of March, and in April, I had my tax return due, and I had to go to my parents to say, hey, if this tax return doesn't come like before the first, I'm going to need you guys to help us pay our mortgage, because literally we were going to start going into foreclosure. So literally for me, I didn't know anything about money until we went. That was my defining moment for myself, is I told my wife, I'll never let us get into that position. So really it was self-inflicted. I learned from the pain of that experience. And then from there, I started being conscious of money. And then just like you said, when I was exposed to the core, that's the first time I've ever done any sort of a budget, any sort of a P&L. I mean, I've done, Financial Peace University through my church one time, and it was great. Like, learned so much. We implemented it for about 3 months, and then it became too much work and there was no accountability. So we stopped doing it and we went broke again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I hired a coach and became accountable. And literally, I've got 6 years of P&Ls. So 12 months for 6 years, I've got that many P&Ls, and it's just a part of what we do now, like you said.
Yeah. That's so good. I love to hear that conflict in your life, because I think sometimes the mentality of people is they look at a guy like you who's really successful now by the world's definition. You truly are in every way, not just money.
Thank you.
And they, there's this tendency to be like, easy for him, or easy for that guy, if they only knew. And it's just like, no, no one was born with the skills you and I have. Like, we had to learn them.
Right.
And the cool thing about you and I is we literally have sat in a room where we've seen hundreds of people go from that story to millionaire.
Yeah.
It's changed our life.
And it's crazy.
We'll never be the same.
Absolutely.
Because we just we know something that we didn't know before, and it's just part of our life. And that's really why I do this podcast, because I want people to hear the story that they don't have to become a real estate agent or a mortgage guy. I mean, we live in a time right now. I don't know what you see, bud. I'm sure you see what I see. Mm-hmm. It seems like one of the greatest times in history to make money. Despite what the media says with the internet right now, I'm sure you see it with your clients. I mean, it is crazy, some of the stuff that people can do from any city in America because of this, right here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So true. So true. I agree.
So tell me, so when you got in the core, you were, you got in the core, you weren't on, you didn't come in on a winning streak. It sounds like.
No, I was 10 years in the business when I came into the core. Yeah. So, and like you said, from the world standards, I was doing great. I mean, we were closing, probably it was myself as an individual agent and a transaction coordinator. And between the two of us, we were closing about 80 deals a year. So, I mean, from a, business standpoint, we were doing very, very well. I was making a couple $100,000. From a personal standpoint, though, I was working out of my home office about 70 hours a week. My commute home was from my home office to the kitchen, and I was never able to separate work and life balance. And every single vacation was me on the phone, me on the computer, me away from my family. And I mean, to be truly honest with you, I hated real estate. I didn't know what to do because I was 10 years in, but I hated the fact that I could not control my business, and my business controlled me, and my schedule controlled me, and I didn't know what else to do. And luckily at that time, it's for me, it's always a God shot. I started getting these CDs from the core from some random lender at guaranteed rate. I don't even know who the person was. And I started listening to them. And then God put another person in my life that came to me and said, hey, we don't know each other, but I've been doing this thing called the core. And he shared with me how it changed his life, and it planted the seed. And then eventually, ended up going to a summit and signing up. And it's like, literally my world went from 0 to 100 within like a 1 to 2 year period, just exponentially different. So it's crazy.
I'm sure you feel the same way as me. As your story never gets old, but it's actually a pretty common story amongst us now. It's, it's like, when I came into the core, I just had gotten a clean bill of health from having stage 4 cancer. My wife and I were like 6 months married. I was down to 0, and I was making some money again because I was working really hard because I was healthy. I was like, man, I'm going to make a career of this. And I also had horrible work-life balance. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know how to have it. I had sticky notes everywhere. I was working at night, your wife's talking to you and you're like, mm-hmm, yep. And just could not be in an engaged conversation without thinking about work. And I hated my career. I hated it. And
Yep.
one night she looked at me and she was crying, and she had just mind you that she had just given the first 6 months of our marriage to taking care of someone who she didn't even know was going to live, and just sacrificing her life to take care of me. And the best that I could give her as soon as I was better was jump into work 90 hours a week. So she's
Of
crying
course.
and she says, "This is not what I signed up for." And I was like, I'm either going to quit and I'm going to go down to Costco because I barely graduated high school and I don't know what guys like me do,
That's
or
right.
I'm going to have to
Yeah.
figure this out. And like you said, it was a God thing, man. Someone forwarded me an email of Josh Sigmund doing some call for a company, and the flyer said 40 loans in 40 hours a week, systems and structure. I don't remember, but that systems and structure stood out to me. I was like,
Yeah.
that's what I need. Got
That's
on the
right.
call, went to my first summit, and it was it's the greatest thing. Like, it's right up there with meeting my wife, my kids, and finding God. I mean, I know you feel the same way.
Absolutely. I really feel like for me, it was another defining moment where if I hadn't have just trusted the process, because when you think about it, like it's not cheap. You're the commitment that it takes to join the core, it's a big risk. And for me, that amount per month was that was everything. Like, if it didn't work, I remember saying when I signed up, like, if this doesn't work, this is definitely the last house on the block for me. And really, I'm grateful for being in that because I feel like I was broken down. So, for commonalities that you and I share, like part of my life is in my story is sobriety as well too. That's something that I discovered through my band days. So if you can believe it or not, I actually was on tour for about 7 years sober, while I had other team member or not team members, but band members that were very active in their separate diseases. So, um, but when you are so broken and so powerless, right? We talk about being powerless. That's what it took for me to start with my sobriety. That's also what it took for me to start with my business, is saying, you know what? Like, I'm powerless over real estate. But what I do have power over is my thoughts and my actions and my activities. And once I surrendered to that, almost like having a sponsor, once I surrendered to that, it's like everything changed so quickly and it just started clicking. So it's just so weird how there's these parallels.
Oh, it totally is. I was just talking about that with some friends right before you and we were talking about, the process of becoming, I don't even know how they put it, but it's like, you might know this, but there's the, where you're not conscious, you don't know what you don't know. And then
Right.
there's, what you don't know. And,
Mm.
and the thing that keeps so many of us in the sobriety world and in the finance world, whether you're in business or you're a family and your money's a mess, the thing that keeps us from what we want is usually fear and pride.
That's right.
And I think that you
Absolutely.
and I have had experiences where we got that beat out of us, and that was a gift. It seemed like it was the
Yeah.
end, but it was the beginning for us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. It's for me, when I first joined the core, that was really my mentality was, look at me, I'm closing 80, transactions a year. Making a couple 100,000, thinking I was a, big fish in a, little pond. And it was the opposite. It was literally like, oh my gosh, like I am literally the bottom level here. And I don't even know if they're going to let me into this program, and realizing like, man, I'm nowhere near close to where I thought I was. And it was good. I mean, I really needed to see that and hear that and be beat down, because it's so funny that my mentality when I entered in with there was, I knew I was broken. I never admitted it to myself. On the outside, it looked like everything was great, but on the inside, I was broken, ready to quit, you know, didn't know what to do. And all I had to do was raise my hand and say, hey, I don't know what to do. And somebody's like, great, let me show you everything. Like you said, time management, systems, structures. And it's like the whole world was opened up. And it's been that way in every aspect of my life. I mean, that's what I love about the journey I've been on in sobriety is I literally just get to ask other people, like, Chris, what would you do in this scenario? And you share with me your experience, strength, and hope. And like, how crazy is it that like it works, right? I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should do that. And then my life changes. It's crazy.
Dude,
So
it's crazy. It is crazy. I mean,
yeah.
I was telling some people who were, like I said, I told you who I was hanging out with before this, and I was just telling them, man, I've found myself in rooms that I don't feel like I belong in for a long time, and I feel
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. And I said, and I've realized that I want to be in those rooms and I want to feel that all the time. Because if I'm not,
That's right.
if
I
I'm not
love
in
that.
those, if I'm not in those rooms where people are making me feel small, then I'm going to be, I never want to be the top dog.
Yes,
I just don't want
that's
to
right.
be. And so many of us, that's the thing that keeps us from reaching out our hand to ask someone for help. I have reached out to so many big people, in all these worlds. And one of the common things they say, and you hear this from Rick all the time, and Rick always asks realtors in front of lenders the same thing, but it's true everywhere. I say, I'll ask them, hey, are you willing to sit down with me? I know what you're doing. And, we call this kind of like a VIP call, but you're wanting to get something from someone who has something you want. And they'll say, well, I don't really do that. No one's ever called me and asked that, but why not? And I just don't think
Yeah.
that people realize how accessible someone that has what you want is. But man, the thing that you just did, putting your hand up and asking for help, that is a hard thing to do for so many people.
Yeah, especially those of us that think like, we've made these achievements and we know so much. And, I'm so grateful for learning over the course of the past 5 years that I've never arrived. I'm like not even close to the level of where I want to be, but it's not so much from a units or a volume or a money perspective. All that stuff is great, but from a right now, I think we're all doing the same projects. We're talking about our vision, our mission, our purpose, and our motivation. And the crazy thing for me, Chris, is like I've been pretty well versed on how to do P&Ls and budgets and all these other higher level things that have changed my business. But when somebody asks me to write down, Ryan, what's your motivation, like why do you do what you do, why do you get out of bed on a daily basis and go do all these activities, right? And what's your purpose, like why are what am I really, what am I really here for other than making money, right? But asking those four things, and it's such a simple assignment, but the results from doing the assignment, like I almost feel like I have such a super clear vision that I feel like I'm just reinvigorated for the entire year. Like I feel like I'm starting over, like I just, you know like just this cold plunge type of effect. Like I just feel like I have this whole new energy. So I love stuff like that.
You do have new energy. That's why we're
Yeah.
doing it. I mean, Rick has a supernatural gift, but I'm curious, man, what have you written down so
Hmm.
far? Because I'm doing the assignment too. I'm also struggling with it. I've got some things so far. I think I'm close. A
Yeah.
few of them feel off, but what are you thinking about right now when you think of like your motivation, your purpose?
Yeah. Well, so the cool thing for me is if it's not written down, printed out in my face, like you can see in the background, like I'm a visual
You
person.
seem
So
very
my
organized.
motivation, I try to be, right. Yeah. You can't see all the chaos that's not on the screen, but at least what you can see, it's like social media will show you what you want to see. But my motivation is simple. It's financial freedom. And what does financial freedom mean to me? It means that I never have to worry, right? You were talking about being in fear. That's a big thing for me is fear, right? So fear of the market, fear of rejection, whatever that may be in our business. So the words financial freedom means so much more to me than a bank account. It means that, it's biblical. Like I want to be able to leave an inheritance for my children's children's children, right? That's financial freedom. Financial freedom also means that if I decide I'm done in real estate in 5 years, then I can literally walk away from that if I choose to, freedom, right? So it's all encompassing, but financial freedom is my motivation. My purpose is to honor God, create a legacy, and to utilize my God given talents. I feel like God gives us special gifting. For some people, it's music or whatever that may be. So a part of my spiritual talents, I feel like, is experience. Like God had me go through what I went through in my 20s, so that one day I would be able to walk the next, whatever age person is that's struggling with what I struggled with. So that's what I love about mentorship, but I think that's big for me. And that's really why coaching is so appealing to me is, my mom was a second grade teacher for 30 years. My mom was the single breadwinner in my family for a long time. You know why? Well, because my dad also went through rehab. My dad was is an alcoholic in recovery, right? But I saw her tenacity and perseverance, and she has a love for teaching. She's got special gifts. So I feel like I've inherited some of that. So I get to kind of utilize the best of both worlds and all the great things I've learned from my dad in real estate. My mom's got the heart of a teacher. And that's my passion, is being able to give that back. So that's my purpose. Honor God, create a legacy, and then utilize my talents. And my mission is simple. It's building and empowering others.
Yeah,
right?
I love it. I was just going to say you're way farther along than me on that assignment. I've got something, but tell me what you're going to say about the vision. I want to hear it.
Well, the vision's the cool part. And so for if you're a tactical person, like for me, everything is tactical. I love the vision because the vision is the clear plan. So for us, it's, X amount of families served, how many, X amount of units closed per month, X amount of net profit monthly, 8 team members, 40 hours worked per week, 50 warm leads per month. That's my vision. That's the part that I really, really like. I already speak that language. So, that's kind of more the fun part for me, is the tactical portion. So I think a clear motivation, vision, purpose, mission, like it's huge to really, really invest the time on doing that on a yearly basis, or else here we go into 2024. And what's my plan? I don't know. To do better than last year? No, that's not a plan, right? So
when I think about this assignment, last night I was working kind of late, and I went outside, and you and I are probably no strangers to an empty parking lot at dark, and
not even yep,
right, and there was a time in my life,
for sure.
There was a time in my life where I would go out the door and I would feel shame, because I would feel I'm letting people down, I'm out of control, I'm not there for my family, because of being super clear on my purpose, my vision, my motivation. And because I have a vision in place, and I have a life by design, with a schedule, with expectations, with communication with my family and the people that matter, I can go outside, same time of night, last car in the parking lot. And instead of feeling shame, I feel proud.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think that does, is it gives you so much clarity to why you're doing the things you're doing every single day. And what a gift that is, man.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. I definitely am no stranger to being the last one in. As a matter of fact, I used to wear it as a badge, and I would brag to anybody on my team. I'm like, I'm the first one in, I'm the last one out. I dare you to beat me. And then finally, somebody that is, a good mentor in my life was like, Ryan, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, why are you proud of that? And I'm like, you're right.
He's like, why are you proud of being dysfunctional, you knucklehead?
Pretty much. And it's like, until you hear that, before I'm like, look at me, that's amazing. I can work 90 hours in a week. That's so amazing. Like, no, that's stupid and inefficient. And, I'm a blue collar guy. Like, I will just go out and outwork just about anybody, but I'll do it with no purpose, and I'll do it with no vision. And it's like, what's the point? At the end of the day, my family doesn't care if I'm not there. So how can I get more done in less time, so I can spend more time with the people that I love, and do activities that are actually moving the needle, as opposed to just this whole what's the point thing, So I'm still learning.
We're always still learning. I'll tell you a little story and we'll wrap up.
Always.
Early in the year, there was a loan officer that I've been recruiting, and she's a friend of mine, and she's been in the business about 4 or 5 years. Doesn't have a team, just working on her own. She's pretty good. And we're talking, and she's she says to me, and this is something that people do in your industry too, to kind of like make themselves feel better and take shots at how you run your business. But she's like, well, I don't want to do things like you. I don't want to have a big team. And, mind you, right before this, she was telling me how afraid she was because she didn't have enough money and she didn't know if she was going to make it, and how many hours she was working. And so she's like, I don't want to be like you. I don't want to have all those responsibilities. I'm too old for that, blah, blah, blah. And I listened to her. I said, well, let me tell you something. I said, if you think that I did what I did for ego or for being money hungry, you're dead wrong. I said, I remember what it was like when I was working all year long to have that one vacation at the end of the year that my wife was looking so forward to have an assistant, my only assistant, quit the week before and having to cancel it and break my wife's heart. And I said, I did this because of fear. I said, because I never want to feel the way that you feel right now ever again.
That's right.
And I said,
Yeah.
and I never will. I said, so,
That's right.
If you want to tell yourself you're too old, if you want to tell yourself all these things, you can keep doing that. But the truth is you're just afraid. And
Exactly.
that's okay. But that's the truth.
It is. And honestly, I wish we had more people in our lives that would speak truth into us at that level. Because I think a lot of people just co-sign on it and say, you know what, you're right. It's probably not your time and, you deserve to rest or whatever. But, I love it when somebody is like, sorry, but you're wrong. You're in fear. And if you want things to change, you need to go change it. Like, that's not what I want to hear, but it's what I need to hear for sure.
Yeah. And lucky for you and I, we have someone that teaches us to talk like that on a regular basis.
At a high level. That's right. At a scary level. Yeah.
Probably the highest level I've ever seen in my life. I don't know about you. I've never seen it higher than that.
It's, I one of the things I learned early on in joining in the core is to start facing my fears. And one of my biggest fears was making a call to Rick, right? So I'm like, I don't want to get yelled at. That guy can see all of my insecurities and issues like laser focused. And I'm like, I don't want that pinpointed at me. And so it was suggested to me to do the opposite of my fears, which was basically every Friday I was going to call him. And so I'm a strategic person. I'm like, when's he in a good mood? And they're like, usually on Fridays, he's on a break, he's smoking a cigar. So I literally started calling him every Friday at 10 a.m., checking in. And it went from Ryan who to, oh, hey, Ryan McKee, like blah, blah, blah. And we started to develop a relationship. And I started to learn things and ask questions and gain value. And now it's a whole different ball game. I mean, he will still call me out when I need to be called out, but I appreciate it so much. And I think that's the hard part of what we have in our life is we place these people in, our lives that don't call us out on that. They allow us to remain comfortable and we stop growing. We stay stagnant. We go backwards. So I love that. I think it's very special to have somebody like that.
Yeah, me too, man. And you and I have a lot of people like that in our lives. You're one of those for me, man, and you can call me out anytime. I give you full permission.
Vice versa.
And
Please.
I'm so grateful that we've gotten to know each other in a short amount of time. We've already done some great things together, and I'm excited for the future. By the way, did your wife send me a Kuyu t-shirt?
She did, brother. Do you like it?
I love it, man. I wore it last night. It didn't have a card, but it had McKee and your wife's name. And I was like, I think Ryan McKee sent this to me. Thank you so much. Please tell her I said thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's a small token of what I owe you. And, just like I said, you've been super impactful in my life. I know it's just the beginning of what we're doing together, but I just appreciate who you are. And like I said, it's a long journey we'll be taking together, but I'm glad you liked it. So.
Well, bro, thanks for taking some time on your Friday. I know people are going to get a ton of value out of this. I got a ton of value out of it, so I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, bud.